Okay, Brother Corey, so you can do so now.
Yes, sir. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we worship, thine aid we seek, O Allah, guide us along the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favor, not of those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Ameen.
I mean, thank you, Brother Corey, for opening us up in prayer. So we'll get started. I'll open up. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we thank Almighty God Allah for His coming in the person or appearing in the person of Master Farah Muhammad. We also thank Almighty God Allah for His raising up the most humble and honorable Elijah Muhammad, the exalted Christ. And we thank them both for their leaving in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I'd like to greet you all with the greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
And so for those brothers and sisters who are on, we thank you once again for taking out of your time to be a part of these bi-monthly, if I would say bi-weekly, telephone conferences. And tonight we have another good presenter, and I think the information that our brother is going to share from his experience and what he's learning and assisting the national assistant to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Ishmael Muhammad. I think we can all agree that we can benefit from that. And before we bring our brother on, I asked Brother Dr. Abram from the mosque in Jackson, Mississippi, just to share brief words about how he feels these biweekly calls have the benefit that he has gained from them. So, Brother Abram, are you on?
Yes, sir, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. Well, so go ahead, my brother, and thank you for being willing to participate tonight.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for being so diligent with these much-needed conference calls, brother, and the information that's being shared. And I just want to say in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, that I'm truly thankful for these bi-weekly calls just to have a forum to learn more about how we can be better in this work and to be better helpers to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to how we deal with the laborers as a different entity as far as the FOI, the MGT captains, the secretary, the protocol, the ministry class. How do we deal with one another? Hearing from the youth and getting the idea and understanding of how the youth see the work and how the youth see their part in this work. Learning how we can do better as far as community outreach and what are some things we should be focusing on in the outreach. Just make us better helpers and better prepared to be better servants to the people. And as I stated earlier, to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and then those of us that are entrusted with attempting to be good shepherds over the house, just giving us much needed tools for those who are in the field and those who have been in the field for a while, has only aided to me personally and to my pastoral side of this ministry. So I'm just thankful for the enrichment that Brother Minister Willie has been putting together with this August panel that has been coming on bi-weekly, the information that has been shared. And I'm hoping that we are keeping notes and going back and reviewing our notes, but more importantly, not just being hearers, but doers of this much vast and great information that we're receiving from one another. And lastly, I'm very appreciative of this forum giving a platform to showcase talents that we have throughout the nation, those that you may know and some that you may know nothing about. And it just let us know that we all have our part to play, no matter what stage that we may see ourselves on, that we all bring something to the table. And this call, this forum, allows us the opportunity to be able to tap into those talents to make our nation great. So I'm exceedingly thankful, Brother Minister. Keep up the great work, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
We say all praises are due to Allah, and thank you all for and all of those who have called in to actually share. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to mute everyone, and then we'll get right to it to bring up our presenter for tonight, our brother Jeffrey Muhammad. So let me mute everyone first. Okay, so for our brothers and sisters who are on, there's a lot that I can say about the brother that we're going to hear from tonight. But for the sake of time, I'll just say how I have personally benefited from brother. You know, being in this ministry, which the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was told that he was given the most difficult mission ever given to any man, right? And that mission has been inherited by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And if we are helpers of them, we have inherited this mission. And to try to work a mission like that, and many of us having full-time jobs, you know, it can be overwhelming sometimes. And I think about how when we would have, you know, when we have these national webcasts, one of the things I admire about Brother Jeffrey is the tone that he sets just at the opening of those webcasts. And I've shared it with him before, but there have been times I'll text him and just thank him for just the spirit that he does the openings with, because it would help me to make that transition, leaving from work, shooting home to eat, shooting to the mosque and getting a webcast and everything together. But just the spirit that he had, you know, it would help to give me a sense of relief. And I thank brother for his spirit and just how he does it. And if you haven't noticed, and most of you may have, but watch it the next time when you see how our brother shows appreciation for the believers and those around, and just let the believers know that, listen, you are appreciated. So our brother was asked to give a presentation tonight about, we will say that's the best description I can give it, like mosque, rostrum etiquette, and really just to give us some pointers about, you know, the do's and don'ts or the tips about being a part of that pre-program before the main speaker. Because any of us who have been given the opportunity and the responsibility of delivering the word, we all know that those who come up before the main speaker serve a very key role. And what they say can set the tone and even the spirit for those who are going to be prepared to receive the main lecture. So I asked our brother to share some words on that, and he sent me a text. He said he would also like to do more of a question and answer, and we can definitely do that. But I asked him if he can just share a few brief words about that, some tips and pointers and things that he has learned and observed over the years. If he can share that with us, and then we'll get into the question and answer. So for the brothers and sisters who are on, please take advantage of this opportunity to ask our brother questions. And then after his presentation is over, like always, please send a text message to me letting me know what you gained from the presentation tonight. So without further delay, let's bring up our brother Jeffrey Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Jeffrey.
Walaikum salam. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet all of my brothers and my sisters in the greeting words of peace, of Assalamu alaikum. To my brother, Minister Willie Muhammad, and the rest of the students in the ministry class, it is my honor, it is my privilege, and I'm greatly humbled to be able to share just a few pointers. And most of these pointers will come from the mistakes that I have made in trying to be an assistant minister to the assistant minister of the assistant minister to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to the assistant to Almighty God, Allah. And I pray that what I can offer can be of some benefit to each of you all, no matter what city you are in. Most of what I would say would probably help those in pre-program the most, but it would give some guideline to those that are the ministers of cities. Brother Willie said it very well. The pre-program speakers can determine how well the lecture actually goes. And there's a formula that we use in Chicago, and Minister Ishmael has given me great latitude over it, and I stick to it very hard. And many of our speakers, if you were to ask them, they would say that Brother Jeffrey can be very strict and even at times very mean and demanding. Number one rule for all pre-speakers, you must come in the door with the right spirit. If it's been a bad morning, a bad day, you will not be speaking in Chicago, because the spirit that we have, and when I say we, I'm saying all of us that are students in the ministry, the folk that are listening to us, they come to the mosque for hope. They come to the mosque to hear a word to uplift them from whatever station in life they are. They're hoping to hear something that can get them through not just another day, but there's always one or two in the audience that's just trying to make it minute by minute. Might have been a believer, a lost found, contemplating suicide, contemplating giving it all up. And that first person, you got to be so filled with that spirit that that person will hold on until the keynote speaker comes and feeds them the proper nourishment that only Allah can give them. The first speaker in terms of prayer. Now, I know in many of the mosques we say prayer as if we're reading it off of a newspaper. And I'm going to kind of mimic it, not trying to make this mockery. But many times we say prayer in the name of Allah, the mercy. Minister told me personally, he said, say the prayer as if you're standing in front of Master Fard Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Say a prayer that they're standing right there in front of you. Say a prayer that when you say your prayer, it's just you and Allah alone. How would you talk to him if you had the chance to say that prayer right in front of you? How would you say it? And at the end of that, he said, and keep in mind, he is right in front of you as you're praying. So don't say the prayer like you're reading it and it's something that you should do. Say the prayer because it's something that you want to say to him. So for all of those that say prayer, make prayer meaningful. Now, we're not trying to sound like Baptist preachers, but when you say that prayer, the prayer sets the tone in the mosque that it is a house of spiritual worship. First person coming up, and the main rule we have for all speakers, everyone that comes on the roster in Chicago must have their words written down, turned in advance, critiqued, corrected, given back, and practiced before they come on a Sunday. No one is allowed on that roster without having their words. And when I say words, word for word, written down. And everyone that you hear, other than Minister Ishmael, has notes in front of them that they read. We do our best not to, and I'm going to use a colloquial term, speak off the cuff, speak from the spirit. We speak from the actual facts that's written in front of us, that I first look over it, and then I give it to Minister Ishmael for his final approval. Second, we try to stay in harmony with the lecture, but many times I don't tell those that are presenting what the lecture is until the last minute, because many times in them writing their words, they'll end up writing some of Minister Ishmael's lecture or whoever will be lecturing. And we don't want to hear the same verses and the same words over and over again intentionally. Now, if the Spirit of Allah moves them where it connects like that, then it's a blessing. But each person is to have words that are uplifting and bearing of witness. We intentionally have younger believers speak, but when they share, they're to open with a scripture, then go into a quote from either the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, then embellish it, and then bear witness. And we try to give them a target audience. For instance, when the young sisters speak, we try to have them to target the young women that are coming to the mosque, the young sisters that might be watching it on internet or YouTube. Talk to those young sisters that are sitting in that audience saying, why should I be a Muslim? Why should I cover? Why are you covered? What's up with Islam? What does Islam do for a woman? What about women walking in the back? We try to make them gear to speak to that lost found sister, to let her know that she can join Islam, and Islam is something for her that will give her life. For the younger brothers, we try to make the younger brothers bear witness the impact of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in their life, and use youthful language. Put in an appropriate quote from some rapper. Put an appropriate quote from some sports star. Someone that young people are familiar with and might look up to. How can we tie something that they say that's impactful, that supports something from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? Each speaker is given no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and that's including their opening salutation. We try to keep the salutation of the pre-speakers very simple. The name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Because the lost found coming in, if I start out with the elongated opening, then I can mess somebody's mind up just from the first 30 seconds of the program. A person coming into the mosque for the very first time, if I say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad exalted Christ, they stuck. Excuse me? What did he just say? Did he say Elijah Muhammad is Christ? Their mind is frozen. They don't hear the next few speakers because they're trying to wrangle with, how can Elijah Muhammad be Christ? They're familiar with Muhammad. They can accept Muhammad. They might not believe in Muhammad. They're familiar with the words Allah. They can accept the word Allah. They might not believe in Allah. So the opening speakers have to keep their words basic. The keynote speaker can have the longer salutation because the keynote speaker can give meaning to it. If you have a mosque meeting and you have a whole lot of first-timers, when you give that salutation, you should give some meaning to why you say it because they're really paying attention. Who is this Master Fard Muhammad? That's what they're saying in their head. I ain't never heard of Master Fard Muhammad. Who is that? What is Messiah? What is Mahdi? They're having all of these questions in their mind as you're opening. But the keynote can embellish. He or she has the time to explain why they say what they say. So the opening speakers have to be careful in long openings. And even if you do say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad exalted Christ, what you don't want is each speaker having a contest as to who can embellish them the most. The most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the divine reminder, warner, exalt, champion, da-da-da-da-da-da, and I miss. Now you're getting out of hand for pre-speakers. Just give your salutation and get to the substance of your words, because in Chicago it's 3 to 5 minutes. Now, normally you'll see me give a note, but the minister shared with me once, he said when he was in New York, he said Minister Malcolm would come out, and they should stop when he comes out. He said, but Minister Malcolm told him the signal. And he said, if you ever listen to any old tapes, Minister Malcolm would be sitting on the side. He said, whenever Minister Malcolm said, make it plain, brother, that was their sign to get off the roster. So now I don't hardly give a note. I'll be sitting in the chair, and they'll be speaking. I'm like, make it plain, brother. Make it plain, sister. That's their sign. That's their indicator. Time for you to stop. You've gone too long. Also have each speaker every 3 minutes look over to your left. Look over, because you might need to come off early. We only have the opening prayer and maybe 2 or 3 speakers. The keynote speaker should be ready to come up between 10:20, 10:30. Minister Ishmael is allowed to come up at 10:30 because of his seniority and his position. But every visiting and guest minister will be on that roster by 10:20 unless there's an emergency. We do not want opening speakers going from 10:20, 10:30, 10:45. At a certain point, it becomes a lot of chatter. Now you're having 4 to 5 lectures prior to the lecture. Third, in charity, many have studied charity from the way students like Minister Jamil and others have done charity in the past. We're not to do charity in that fashion. We're not to say who has the first 100, who has the second 100. On big events, the minister has allowed Minister Nuri to do that. In our mosque, unless we're raising for Savior's Day, we're to ask for charity, not by denominations, but we're to ask for the money. We're not to harangue the believers or the guests. We're to use spiritual quotes, nation-building quotes, ask them for charity, and within 5 to 10 minutes, move forward in charity. But we're not to give charity a long segment where we're begging people for money. You don't want to say give them a $100 round of applause. Who has the next $25? Who has the next $10? That's only done on events. If the minister comes to your town or guest comes to your town and you have a venue and you're trying to raise money to offset your costs, that process is a little different. But at the mosque, keep it very, very, very simple. When Minister Ishmael is on the podium, all of the assistant ministers are to sit on the side, take notes, study. Every assistant minister is responsible also for acceptance. The sisters will do the acceptance on the sister side. The brothers are responsible for acceptance on the brother side. Also, during the meeting and right before, those that are in the ministry will be the greeters at the front door. You have the brother on the front door, brothers on check post, and we have a brother in the hallway that greets the guests as they come in. Welcome to Mosque Mariam. How are you, sir? How are you, ma'am? We thank Allah that you made it. Please sign in here. We have members from the student ministry that do that. We should have the best spirit. We should be filled with the spirit of Allah. We should have the love in our hearts more than anyone in that mosque. That means we should be the first person that they see with a smile on our face, a warm handshake, even a hug, whatever your heart feels to make that person feel that, look, I've come to a place that loves me. Because after the check, they feel like, man, I've been checked, feel like it's a police station. But once you show them love and say, we're not checking because you're wrong, we're checking because the world has been wrong to you. So we're not nervous that you're going to do something wrong. We don't want you to continue to have the world do something wrong to you. That person sometimes laughs, but we give them a big hug. Welcome to the mosque, brother. You in for a big treat today. Come on inside, black man. Welcome home. We try to put that person at ease because when they come to the mosque, everything they see is totally different than what they've ever experienced before. Never been in a place, a religious house, where brothers are on one side, sisters on the other. Some of us are on check posts, and y'all know as well as I do, we have some people that are on check posts that will mean mug you to death. They will look at you if you sneeze wrong. There's a brother or sister at every mosque that looks at you like they will cut your head off if you move wrong. You have to anticipate all of that when you're greeting that guest for the first time. You want your spirit to be much stronger than anything else they encounter in the mosque or the study group. Now, Brother Willie, I guess I'd like to do some question and answer. If you don't mind, Brother Willie, can we do a lot of just conversation with everyone?
Definitely, man. But I would say what you have shared thus far is just on point. But definitely. So for those brothers and sisters who are on, if you have a question, you want to press *6 to unmute yourself, and you can ask Brother Jeffrey a question. And also want to reiterate this, that please, after his presentation, after we conclude the call, please send some feedback, what you gain from what our brother shared. So does anybody have a question for our brother? State your name and where you're from.
As they're considering is another thing, those that are assisting in the ministry, if you're not the minister of your city, if you're the assistant minister or the lead assistant minister, your duty is to push your minister of your city. Your minister's job is to push the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The minister's duty is to push the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when you're saying words on the podium, you find words from your student minister's lecture from last Sunday, and you reiterate that. Last Sunday, student minister Willie talked about black-on-black love, and he said, da-da-da-da-da-da. And he quoted from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who said, da-da-da-da-da. And he quoted from the Bible. And we need black-on-black love. We thank Minister Willie for that lecture. And this Sunday, but each of you all have to push your local student minister for one particular reason. If everyone pushes the minister, the guest is going to ask one question. Well, when is he coming? Let me know when that dude that y'all keep talking about coming, and then I'll come back. But when you push your local minister in connection with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they'll be so excited, like, well, who is this dude talking about black-on-black love? He said all that? Yeah, he's coming up next. Well, damn, I can't wait to hear this Minister Willie. He that good? He's that good. Well, let me hear him. And then he comes up. Yeah, he was pretty bad. I can't wait to hear him again. So each minister, push the minister in your city and have those who come up on that podium as they end their delivery. Make sure each of them say, and minister, whatever your minister's name is, will continue. Have them all connect their words with the student minister in the city. I'm sorry, student minister.
No, brother, you trust me, man. What you are sharing is needed all over our nation. So, anyone has any questions? So, please ask. Sometimes it takes you will press *6, *6. Anyone has any questions for our brother?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yes, sir, Brother Jeffrey. This is Brother Corey in Charlotte. Thank you again, brother. You shared, literally in this little bit of time, you shared a lot. Just reiterating what Brother Student Minister Willie said, you've shared a lot to help, especially the last thing you just shared, the last point. One question I would ask, the importance of having it written beforehand, before going up. Do you all cover that, like with the assistant ministers? Is there a class that you have, or how do you convey that information? Do you have a conference call that you talk about these things, or do you have a certain time when you all meet up, or how do you all get that information conveyed to the ministry class?
We have a class. I'm going to say this, and I got to say it correctly. We have student ministers that are in the ministry class, but we don't have an open ministry class.
Yes, sir.
Those that are considered students in the ministry. Now, let me add this before I get into the answer. Those that go to the roster, if you are not over the mosque, you're not a student minister. You're a student in the ministry class. So Student Minister Corey is a student minister. Student Minister Willie is a student minister for two great reasons. Number one, they were ordained by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. They were given that title by him. Second, they have the responsibility of a mosque, of a city, And in Christian language, they have a flock. That means that they are ministers and administrators. Those that share the roster are not student ministers, they're students in the ministry. And unless the minister gives you the title student minister, or you've been over a city, you're a student in the ministry class. I've been the minister of 2 different cities. That's why I have the title of student minister. The minister gave the title minister to Brother Abel, Brother Shahid, Brother Abdul. He called them student ministers. Most others that speak from the rostrum are students in the ministry. And if you hear me, I intentionally say, coming up next, student in the ministry class of student minister Ishmael Muhammad. Now, many could handle the title minister, but unfortunately, many of us that are not over the mosque, and we believe we're student ministers, if we're not careful, our ego sometimes makes us to challenge the very minister in the mosque, the student captain in the mosque. Sometimes we believe that the final call paper, post duty, and the assignments of the FOI, or even going to FOI class, we're above that now because we're students in the ministry, or we're student ministers. That does not put any assistant minister. There are no assistant ministers that has any authority equal to the student captain in your mosque. Every assistant in the ministry is an FOI. It should be at every FOI class. If you're teaching in processing, your student minister will let the captain know that by his assignment, you are in there. If you're leading the Wednesday or Friday, your student minister will let the student laborers know that from his assignment, that is the position that you're assigned to help him. But student ministers, please be careful calling your assistants ministers. They're students in the ministry class. And Brother Corey, ours is kind of like a machine now. The ministers that speak, they know to have their words in on Wednesday. Some can go up to Friday, but they got to have it no late. The young ones have to have theirs by Wednesday. The older ones can get up to Friday, so I can get them back to them rather quickly. Like a Brother Shahid, Brother Abdul, Brother Abel. For the most part now, you don't never have to correct theirs. The younger ones, I go over theirs with a fine-tooth comb every single week to make sure that they're on point. But we try to have it in. I try to get it to Minister Ishmael for his approval. If I cannot get in contact with him or he doesn't respond, then it's on me. Now, when they make a mistake or say something inappropriate or wrong, the responsibility of what they say is on my shoulders. The minister or Minister Ishmael will hold me accountable more than he will hold them accountable, because it's my duty to know in advance what they're going to say. And even if they get up there and freelance and just start talking, their mistake becomes my fault. Even if I say, hey, it wasn't on script, they went off script, there's no excuse. You're to know what they say. I'm to coach them. If they go above and beyond that, they weren't good students, they weren't good teammates, I'm held accountable for that. So I'm very strict with the students in the ministry. Don't go too far. Don't speak too long. Stay on point. The speaking of that word, when the believer and the first-timer is in that audience, especially the first-timer, they're going to believe everything that we say. So even the mistakes that we make, the seasoned believer can catch it and say, he misquoted that. But the first-timer is going to accept that because they've never heard it. They're going to register that as truth. So we have to be so very careful with what we're sharing and even how we're sharing. Another tidbit. Please have your assistant ministers and know that our assistant ministers, I'm praying you take this in the right spirit. Be careful of studying other ministers in forming and shaping your presentation. A lot of the younger brothers love the old lectures of Brother Khalid Abdul Muhammad. And you'll hear that in their words. You'll hear it in their mannerisms. You'll hear the attraction to Minister Malcolm X in their words and in their mannerisms. And I'm very hard on them to be careful of their constant study of them. And I'll share why. There was a time when both of them were some of our best. But at a certain point, whatever trial Allah put them in, history has shown they did not pass their test. I pray that I never have to go through a test close to theirs, but they didn't pass theirs. Only 2 men have passed that test so far in the history of the Nation of Islam. That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. No one else has passed the leadership test yet. They didn't pass it. So somewhere in their struggle with their tests, the very language of their distaste, dislike, growing hypocrisy began to demonstrate itself even in the mosque. Where? I don't know. When? I don't know. But it started long before it manifested where everybody could hear it. So I tell them, be very careful, because you don't know at what lecture, at what point did they become dissatisfied. And the very language that they use, although it sounds good to us, was leading them down a road to turn them away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in the case of Brother Khalid, to turn him away from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I have to be I'm very sensitive with our younger ones in studying them too, those 2 men, because at a certain point their way fell out of favor. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I think most of you all know, many of Brother Khalid's ways fell out of favor with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Although his way was favored by many lost found brothers and sisters. They loved the edutainment of Brother Khalid. They loved the mockery. They loved the way that he talked. And how the young would say, the way that he clapped back. They loved all of that about him. But the minister said that was not the way of the civilized man to go about that. So we'll find many here, if we're not careful, those words will creep in, those words will come out. So that's a big, big key what I have them, Minister Corey, to write down, because we can't afford to have them to come up and they're going to out-gangster the devil in 2017. Not going to happen.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah.
Anybody else?
You know, if no one else, I'll ask one more then and take advantage of this for everyone else that's listening. For the part about we should have the best spirit, those in the ministry class, greeting the guests as they come out. After the acceptances are taken, and I noticed that when I've been in Mosque Mariam, I'll notice that, you know, there'll be clipboards and numbers taken. Are the ministry class normally the ones that's following up with some of those guests that came out? I know if someone bought them, of course, they'll follow up too, but how do you all do it there?
Absolutely. We have it now where we do the registration of the guests via telephone, we can input it on cell phone and it prints out on a Google Docs, but it is the number one duty of every student in the ministry, starting either Sunday night or Monday night. Well, Sunday night, start making calls. You're inviting the brothers to come back Monday night. Tuesday, you're making a call, invite them to come out Wednesday. Thursday, you're making a call, invite them to come out Friday, and then Sunday. But the primary purpose of the guest list and acceptance list falls number one in the lap of the students in the ministry class, and then it can be passed on to the lieutenants. But the number one responsibility is the ministry to make the calls to the first-time guests. And we usually go back on a regular basis 3 months to 6 months in our regular rotation. And what you'll find is, and I'm sure most of you all have found out, our people, I think the average time in Chicago of a cell phone might be 6 months. Within 6 months, over 60% that have given their number, after 6 months, that number is no longer there. It has changed, phone has went off. So the cell phone life is very short in Chicago. We're doing a lot of emailing now, but that process has been so slow, especially with the younger ones. They don't necessarily email back, and if they do, it's a one-word, yeah, I'll be there, no, I won't make it. So having email conversations has been very difficult, but it's our job for the telephone. And it keeps the students in the ministry class engaged, because you'll find questions. You'll find someone when they start asking biblical and Quranic questions and questions on the teachings. It lets you know if you need to study more or what you need to study. So it's been a great exercise for the students in the ministry class as well, in having to defend the teaching.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, brother.
Now, for anyone on the line, if whatever I said, please, we're having a dialogue. So let's have a discussion, especially those of us in ministry. We're at a critical juncture in the history of our nation. And I'm not trying to preach, just sharing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not say publicly, I'm departing. He intimated to some of the ministers privately, but he never said publicly, I'm departing. So when it was stated to the believers on Savior's Day that he had passed, you got to look at the spookiness of how they took it. Today is Savior's Day, and we're being informed that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad died. Very spooky. And even when they heard he died, or they heard the day before, whatever went through their minds was just straight trauma, tragedy. They had no preparation for it. Spiritually, many couldn't find their way out or find an answer to a problem that they never knew would be a problem. The minister has not put that problem on us. The minister has shared with us 20, 30 plus years. He will be departing. We know that. Now, whether we believe it and accept it is another thing. But what we do know is he has said it. So upon his departure, we no longer will have the best spiritual defender, nor will we have the best spiritual up-to-the-plate person on the planet. He will no longer be among us in the flesh. The enemy will, at that point, try to take advantage of what appears to be our disadvantage. And since they know y'all don't have your best here, we're going to come at you with everything we got. Y'all going to now have to prove everything that we knew he knew. You all now are going to have to be able to articulate what he said, but you're going to have to articulate it in a way that you're not just quoting him. You're quoting him because you believe it, you have faith in it, you know it, and you love it. We won't have him to be able to say, how can we do this? What should we do? Where do we go? We have to know all of those answers yesterday, because at any time Allah can take him. Even at this second, he can take him. We can't even guess, well, maybe Savior's Day. All we can say is at any moment it can happen, which means at any moment we have to be prepared. And the first line of defense is not our martial arts. It's not our physicality. It's not how tough we are. It's not how good we look. The first line of defense, the Marines, the Green Berets, will be students in the ministry, will be the vanguard for the Nation of Islam, because white folk and black folk are going to flood us with all kinds of questions, all kinds of statements, all kinds of information are going to come out, because they're going to say, and I want y'all to take this, my colloquial statements right away, I want to see what these niggas are made of with Minister Farrakhan not around. So I appreciate Minister Willie having this forum that we can put our heads together, that when that day happens, we are all on one accord. So if there's any question you want to ask it. If I can't answer it, my word is bond. I'll call Minister Ishmael and get that answer and get it back to Minister Willie. I can get it back to Minister Corey, but you can get an answer very shortly, because the objective is to strengthen everyone on this line, including myself, that when that flood comes, we are all prepared, we're all entrenched, and we're all ready for it, that not only do we swallow the flood, we throw a flood back at them that they can't answer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Well, brother, if no one else, well, I'm sure maybe some others have a question, but I'll ask one more, and then that'll do it on my end. And that would be, I know the topic tonight, and you gave us a lot of valuable information in terms of the, what happens before the main lecture. But I know as student ministers, we're taught that that's a small part of our job. A large part of it is the administration outside of the rostrum. And so as best as you could give, what would you say would be some of the duties or responsibilities, or what would be some of the things that the students in the ministry class could do, would have, some responsibilities, whether it's student assistant ministers or what have you? What would you share what some of those responsibilities would be?
That's a very good question. The assistant ministers should be in line with the first officer of the mosque. Assistant minister should be helping the minister of the mosque to make sure there's no zeros challenge. The assistant minister can be that first person up to the lieutenant, brother minister. We got 5 brothers that got zeros. And the lieutenants will have one way of addressing the conversation. But the assistant minister, not all of the ministers, the assistant minister who can be trusted. Because what you got to be careful with is giving everyone access to believers' records. Everyone shouldn't have access to all the believers' private records. But that assistant minister can make himself available. If he's trusted, if he's liked in the mosque, then maybe a brother would say, you know what, I'm having a tough time, to his lieutenant. The lieutenant can say, you know what, brother, I want you to meet with Brother Jeffrey. Spiritually, he can help you. Yes, sir. Assistant minister should be available for that when the minister of the mosque can't, that he can give spiritual counsel to those brothers that are having family issues, financial issues, which all of it comes down to faith issues. Assistant minister should be able to look through the records. Who's in the hospital? Who's not doing well? Who needs a care call? Who needs care prayer? Who needs to be visited at the hospital? Who just had a baby? Who's graduating? Assistant minister should be able to take care of that information, pass it on to the student minister to be able to say, Minister Willie, you should call Brother Jeffrey. He had surgery yesterday. Give him a call. Keep your minister informed of what's going on in the mosque that he might miss. Many of our student ministers are very social. They're out in the streets. They're out in the fight. They're preaching. Assistant minister is our duty. We got Sister Aisha. She's still in the hospital, Brother Minister. We need to go see her. Set the date up. Keep the minister informed in the activities of the believer. Number 2, keep the minister tied with the believers, that no one knows that brother's name or no one knows that sister's name. We all have in our mosque that one brother that's there for everything. He does the papers. He holds the post. He'll sweep the floor. He'll walk you to your car. He's usually the last man to leave. He never asks for anything. He doesn't want anything. He's just that brother you know you can count on. Make sure the student minister acknowledges him, calls him, even invites him out to dinner. It will make that brother know that somebody's paying attention to him, and even that sister, somebody's paying attention to her. The assistant minister can help keep the paper count. for the minister. We're not doing well with the final call. Maybe you should share some words with the lieutenant. Maybe you can share some words with the believers. The assistant minister should walk through the mosque before the meeting. I get to Mosque Mariam every Sunday, 8 o'clock, no later than 8:30. I do my walkthrough of the mosque. It's my duty to make sure that that bad boy better be clean. Got to be smelling well. Everything has to be set up. We do not leave that for the captain to take charge of that. As the minister of the mosque and all ministers, if your desire is to be over one of Muhammad's mosques, you should know how to do everything in that mosque. I'll share something with you all. I'm not blessed to be around the minister a lot. I've been blessed to be around him a few times, and I've treasured the few times. The few times I've been with him, it always seemed to be very hard. Right before he started doing his album, he came to the mosque with his violin teacher at the time, a gentleman named Mr. Veal. He came about 7 o'clock at night, just those two. I was in the mosque, and he was speaking to Mr. Veal. And he went, got his violin, he played it. He was standing upstairs in the balcony. And he heard the acoustics, and he said, you know what, I think I'm going to record here in the mosque. He said, we're going to start recording next week. Next week was Day of Atonement. Some of you all might remember, we had Day of Atonement right before we did the rededication in 08. On that Saturday, we had everyone under the tent in the front. I came out and made an announcement that the minister would not be coming that evening because he wasn't feeling well. What it didn't say was I was the cause of the minister not feeling well. He came up to the mosque. We were cleaning out the mosque. There were 2 offices. We had mopped their floors, waxed their floors. Their stuff was in the hallway. As Ishmael told us 3 times, put all the stuff back. We put all the things back in the room. 5 o'clock, the minister comes in a car that nobody recognized. All the laborers are at the palace. He comes by himself, walks in the mosque. All his furniture is back out, calls for me. He's hollering. I've never heard a man yell this loud in my life. He's going off the top of his lungs. Get this stuff back in here. Then he asked me, how did this stuff get out here? I think I speak 4 or 5 different languages. I can't answer. I'm just stuttering. He goes back, tells Minister Ishmael, Brother Jeffrey has made me sick to my stomach because the way that damn mosque looked. Now, I felt suicidal. I felt Allah was going to strike me down with a lightning. And I'm telling all y'all on the line, I'm not lying. I actually felt at any moment Allah would take my life. That's how far crazy I was getting with the thought of making the messenger of God angry. Then 2 days later, he comes back on the lot, and I tell him I'm sorry. He says, I want you to know how to do everything as a minister. I'm going back to Mr. Veal. The next week he comes, he says, Brother Jeffrey, go upstairs, cut the sound on. Now I'm froze because we have a very expensive soundboard. Upstairs we have a state-of-the-art soundboard which allows us to do not only state-of-the-art music in Mosque Mariam, but we can do video conferencing, we can do live on the web. So it's not just a push and play. I'm sitting in front of this board, and I'm calling on Allah with everything I got, like I have no clue what to do. But all I can remember him saying is, know how to do everything. He's on the stage, I'm upstairs, and he yells, the sound is not on yet. I call Brother Ahmed, I call Brother Amin, no one answers. I say a prayer, I start pushing buttons, I go downstairs, I hit the mic, sound is on. He starts playing, he starts recording. He looks, he says, I want you to know how to do everything in this mosque as a minister. I got it at that point, so I pass it to you all. Everything in your mosque or your study group, every student minister that desires to be over a mosque know how to do everything for one reason. There should not be a soldier in doing any duty in any capacity that you as the student minister cannot train. You should be able to train every soldier in every capacity that has a function and a duty in the mosque, from the captain down to the maintenance man. You, as the head of the ship, can tell every man how to do everything, from record the lecture to videotape to set the chairs up to buying the flyers. Everything you should be able to give direction. When you have a knowledge of a whole lot of things, the respect of the brotherhood is incredible when they can put that kind of trust and faith in you. Now, I know I gave you a long story for a long period of time, but I want to stress the point, and I appreciate your question, Minister Corey. As students in the ministry learn how to do everything in that mosque, not for vanity reasons, but for the sake that you can teach and train everyone in the mosque how to.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Minister.
You're welcome, sir.
Very good, man. Very good. Anybody else that's on that has a question before we start wrapping it up? Here's your opportunity to ask.
I hope I haven't bored anybody.
Oh, definitely not.
No,
man.
sir.
You're hitting on so many points, and I think as we'll probably see in the feedback that many people will say how they will we've been waiting to get little bit the stuff that you have shared is so precise, is so practical, and is extremely relevant. So does anybody else have a question?
You know, Minister Willie, for the pre-speakers, sometimes the pre-speakers have a tendency to want to go heavy. You understand what I mean, go heavy?
Yes, sir.
You want to go real deep into the word? No pre-speaker should go deep into the word. None. No pre-speaker should be cracking atoms. None. You are warm-up. The pre-speakers are the warm-up. You are the hors d'oeuvres to the main meal. Do not become the meal in itself. You are to turn the heat up slowly, slowly, slowly. Each person should turn that heat up a little more, a little more. So when the order is set, you know who are your more college professorial speakers. Either put them first or sandwich them in between. But the one that has the spirit that you know going to get the crowd jumping, put that person up before you bring on the minister. But each person, do not go heavy, do not go deep. Keep it simple. You can take the messenger's words, and the messenger's words are so profound, but they're simple. But don't try to wow the crowd with how much you know. Try to wow the crowd with how much he knows and how big he is. So we're now, if you're noticing, we're straight reading from his book. 90% of my opening words for Minister Ishmael are straight from Message of the Black Man, straight from Our Savior Has Arrived, straight from the Fall of America, with nothing added. Those words are 100% the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then bring on Minister Ishmael. So I think if we can make the people more familiar with them, the better we will be as pre-speakers. Start filling your words more with what the minister's saying and what the messenger said, and then bear witness to how it has helped in your life versus you trying to teach what they said. Just give them what they said and watch how much life the audience has.
Wow, man.
Yes, sir. Beautiful.
Very good. So it doesn't appear that anybody else has any additional questions, and we try to end at 9 o'clock to respect for people's time. But, Brother Jeffrey, what you have shared is so beneficial, and what we do is we give we record the presentation, so we'll definitely send you a copy. And for those who are on the line who I know they'll need it, some brothers have already sent me a text saying how they've just been taking notes. So I thank you for what you shared, brother, and thank you for taking the time out to come and share those words. So if you have any closing words, you can close. You can share your last closing words, and then we'll just make the next announcements, and we'll close out.
I thank you, Brother Minister Willie, for the opportunity to share with the other students in the ministry. And I pray all of those that when they heard me say that if you're not over the mosque, you're students in the ministry, to take that humbly that you're still in the most powerful and impactful position in the mosque. And minister means servant. Speakers are different than ministers. Minister Willie is a servant. Minister Corey, servant. They're in with the community much more than they speak. They serve people. They talk to people. They're on the line with the people. They're in folks' homes. When you do that more than you're on the roster, you're a minister. When you're strictly on the roster, you're a speaker, you're a presenter, you're a lecturer. So when I said students in the ministry class, not based on how well you teach, it's how well you serve. So all of us, let's strive to be the best servants. And as I close, the best example of a servant, we've all been to great restaurants, but we've all seen that one family, and maybe it was ours, that the children poured the salt and pepper in the glasses. They put food in the glasses. They put the ice cream with the broccoli. The table was just a mess. Tablecloth was nasty. They knocked over stuff, food all on the floor, everywhere. But the good waiter or waitress comes with a smile, and they say, don't worry about it. I got it. They don't have an attitude. They just clean up a mess that everybody in the back is mad at. But that waiter and waitress cleans it up with a smile and say, don't worry, I got it. That is the best example for us that desire to be ministers. We are the ones that clean up the mess that the white man's world has done to black people. And we are to do it with a smile on our face and to tell our people, don't worry about it. We are the cleaners of a mess that you did not know that you were making. Thank you, Student Minister Willie.
Yes, sir, my brother, and thank you. And for all of those who are on the call, thank you for tuning in. One of the brothers sent me a text. He said all the questions that he had, you had already answered them. So, brothers and sisters who are on, please take a time out and send a text message letting me know what you gained from tonight's presentation. And once again, Brother Jeffrey, thank you for coming on again. And God willing, this is our second year doing this. So inshallah, as we begin to start getting into the next session, we would love to have you to come back on the deal.
It'd be my honor. Shoot me to think. I want to participate. Can I answer this last question? I know it's going to come up in folks' mind. If you don't mind.
Go ahead.
You got many that want to do main lectures. Many students that want to teach on Sunday. My first answer is no. That minister that is assigned from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it is his duty to carry that word every single Sunday, unless he is sent somewhere else to speak. In that capacity, then he should have an assistant minister or bring in a visiting guest minister. Those that would like to do a lecture, send a letter to your student minister telling him why you feel you should lecture. Then send your student minister an outline of what you would teach. And if he approves that outline, then write your lecture out word for word and send it to your student minister. If you say, I can't write it down, let the Spirit move me, you should never teach in a mosque of Muhammad. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the only person that gets up on that podium and say, I come with no notes. But what we miss when he says that is the minister did intense study for 9 years. He said he studied 8 to 9 hours per day. I don't think any of us have ever studied 8 to 9 hours per day for more than 6 months, let alone for years. So he has proven that he put the time in to develop the word in him and practically memorize the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at a time when they did not have Message to the Black Man, Our Savior Has Arrived, Fall of America, How to Eat to Live, no cassette tapes, no VHS, no DVD, no CD. They would only get an article, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Bible and Quran. He would study that, where we have all of the ministers' tapes, all of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's tapes that we can study from. They were not selling tapes of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So you got to see the intensity of a study with such limited material that he was able to extract all of what he got with the limited materials that he could use from his study. And I'm not saying the Bible and Quran are limited, but in terms of the amount of materials, he only had 2 or 3 books from which he could actually pull the Word of God and a few lessons, because they did not have it in boundary form the way we have it. So those that have a sincere desire to teach a lecture, send that to your minister and ask first to share words, and then ask on a Wednesday. You should first do 20 minutes on a Wednesday, then 30 minutes on a Wednesday, then maybe 45 minutes on a Wednesday, and be able to take the critique of your student minister. Do not debate your student minister. Take the critique. Because I'm going to tell you one thing, looking up at a speaker is different than standing on the roster talking to an audience. When you get up on that podium and you look at an audience, you got a totally different feeling of the Word of God. And you got to be careful that you're not teaching for applause. You're teaching to build consciousness, but you're not teaching for the applause and adulation. But your student minister will help you. So please, you got to trust the process. And then lastly, if you're not selling final call, if you're not paying charity, if you're not dutiful in your mosque, do not ask to represent the Word. The person that represents the Word should be an ideal FOI. So any brother, before you are able to even ask, can I teach, your captain should be able to say that you are a top-flight soldier. By all means, he'll represent you to your student minister. But if you ain't selling final call, we don't even believe you can speak, because the best minister can sell the most final calls. If you're not selling, if you don't pay in charity, you don't even have faith in the Word. So you can't get on a podium to present something that you don't support yourself. So make sure all of these things are satisfied before you even approach your student minister to ask, may I teach a lecture? I'm sorry, brother, to put that point in.
Oh, no, it's good. I'll just share this something. I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say at the dinner table, he said, I've got word that some of you all are coming to the rostrum without having any preparation and not preparing your lecture, and you're just shooting from the hip, and you are taking what I have shared with you all in regards to what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me, the minister speaking, when he said that, brother, don't worry about preparing, just go up and let Allah speak through you. And the minister told the student ministers that he said that was the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's instructions to me, not to you.
That's right.
Some people taking that and they're thinking, like, well, I'm just going to get up there and do that. And some people don't realize that those who know, who have taught for a while, and even some people who may not have taught, or they just are listening, they listen with a critical ear, they can tell when people are winging it.
Oh, yes, sir. You're right.
They can tell people are winging it.
That's right.
Just hitting on, the white man is the devil. Okay, that's going to get you a lot. Came. Yeah, but they can tell when people are winging it. So, Brother Jeffrey, thank you. And I'll send you the feedback that brothers, they're starting to send already. But, man, thank you, brother. May Allah continue to bless you. And I'll add you to the text message so you can, if your schedule allows, you can come on and participate in the calls as well. And for those brothers and sisters who are on, once again, I can't thank you all enough. May Allah continue to bless you. And this ends the call, so I'll stop the recording, and I'll send out an email and a text letting you all know who the next presenter will be and on what the topic will be. So may Allah bless each and every one of you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks a lot.